Just weave the whole.
Weave back and forth.
Just weave that guy right there. He's not paying attention.
He's not paying attention at all.
I'll tell you what, we can get in an accident, and I'll demonstrate how stop the leak can help.
Oh, perfect. Well, as we are borrowing the car from Amanda Suffolk from Eye on the Target Radio, and as her brother likes to say, we have the insurance, and we're not afraid to use it.
Before we start today's show, please visit the sponsors, affiliates, and friends of the Stagecoach. The Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast, hosted by Rob Morse, brings you recent examples of armed civilians protecting themselves and who they love. The show helps you determine if people were lucky or trained, maybe both. Self-Defense Gun Stories is on all of your favorite podcast outlets. TheGunFood.com has an extensive network of partners to connect you with your guns, ammunition, and firearm training. The Gun Food only sells ammo that they trust. Use RSWC as a discount code and save 5.56% on your order at thegunfood.com. PowerTac flashlights have combined premium craftsmanship, American ingenuity, and cutting-edge technology, creating a highly dependable tool that you can trust your life with. Go to powertac.com/RSWC and save 15% on your order. That's powertac.com/RSWC. Saber Pepper Spray has been making grown men cry since 1975. Find the link in the show description and help get the Stagecoach across America with every Saber Red purchase you make.
Shotgun with Charlie.
Riding shotgun refers to the practice of sitting next to the driver in a moving vehicle. The term riding shotgun came around after the time of the Stagecoach, when somebody used to sit next to the driver holding a shotgun, in case they ran into bandits. My name is Charlie Cook, and I drive a lot. I like to talk to people while I'm driving, so I interview people in my car while I'm driving. Welcome to Riding Shotgun with Charlie.
All right, before we start this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie, I want to say thank you for tuning into the YouTube channel and checking out the podcast, downloading the show. If you are watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do. Hit the notification bell because that's good for all stuff YouTube. We're glad you guys are here. We're glad you're watching the show. And if you enjoy it, please share it with one of your friends, because that is how we get the Stagecoach across America. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Today we are coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona, and I have with me someone that's been on the show before. I have with me Dave Laird from Defensive Combat Solutions?
Dynamic Combative Solutions.
God, I get it's 3 letters. I got the letters
I know,
right.
DCS.training.
There we are. That's what we got. Dave, thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having me back.
I haven't last year, well, here's the scoop. In 2021, we did we both did a Faster Saves Lives class.
Yep.
In Wadsworth, Ohio?
Yep. I think so, yeah.
Somewhere in Ohio.
Yeah.
And that's where I got to meet you, and you were nailing it.
Thank you.
Like, everyone's struggling with stuff, and you're like, all right, put the gun away. Help closing the targets here, holding the targets there. Okay, what's next? Like, this isn't so hard. Like, what's the problem here?
I eat and breathe this stuff, so sometimes it's nice just to be a student. I'm always the teacher, and I like to go around and train with a lot of folks, just because you never know what little tidbit you're going to pick up in what class, etc. And Faster's been a program that myself and Dave Kopp have wanted to bring to Arizona for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Kopp was the president of the Arizona Citizens Defense League, which is our own little Second Amendment group down here. So yeah, I went up there to go do the level 1 class, and then right afterwards I left to go do the level 2. So I missed out on your Force on Force day and the final day, so I could go get into day 1 of the level 2, which was more intense, more fun, and yeah, I enjoy this stuff, dude. That's why I do it. I teach it. I live it. I breathe it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, last year at the Gun Rights Policy Conference, I think that was your first GRPC, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was my first GRPC. That was my first AMCON.
Yeah, and AMCON, I want to talk about AMCON real quick. So the AMCON is the Alternative Multimedia Conference, and it's the folks that are podcasters, writers, YouTubers, bloggers, all this sort of stuff. And you did a presentation last year that kind of blew people away.
So yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd. I've got a cousin that is he speaks 15 languages of code. He's basically a savant, and
Wow.
He is to computers what I am to guns. And so I'm also a very techie person. I got kids and video games and all this sort of stuff. And when I first started out, I needed to learn how to use social media. I worked for a large organization and I wanted to do training, but they were a range, a store, and training. And so most of their social media was focused on the store and the range. And it didn't speak to the same crowd that I was speaking to for training. So I created my own social media content for the training. And that was back before social media was social media. I mean, there was YouTube and Facebook, and that was it. And that's how I got to be good friends with John Correa. So I learned a lot about YouTube through him and Facebook. And so every year I'm deeply diving into it. My only caveat is like I'm not internet web famous because my full-time gig that I do prevents me from getting my face out there and telling everybody who I am.
Gotcha.
So yeah, my full-time gig, but I have my own training organization at the same time. So, but I still do all the research and stuff because eventually when I do retire and I make training my full-time thing, I need to know how to use the social webs to do what it is I need to do.
Yeah.
And speaking to the first AmCon, social media is generational. And so I spoke about the fact that, your older crowd's going to be on Facebook. YouTube's relatively universal because it's kind of an education platform. Most people go there to research and learn. And but your younger crowds, the ones that are in high school right now, are on Snapchat, TikTok, etc. Instagram is going to be your middle-aged folks, roughly, where they're spending the majority of their time. And so folks moving forward, if they want to start getting into next year's customers, need to start looking at some of those younger generational platforms.
Like
the
TikTok?
So TikTok's the one that's coming out of the blue. The neat thing about TikTok is that it's multi-generational. It's as simple to use as any other platform. So it's hitting every age group, every age bracket, and it's very minimalist. So if you're already making videos, you're already making content, it doesn't hurt you at all to create a profile there and throw up your snippets on that platform, and hopefully that'll drive that traffic back to your YouTube or your Facebook or your website, wherever you want it to go.
Gotcha. A couple years ago, I did... people were sending me videos on TikTok, and so I was talking with my daughter, and I'm like, I'm thinking of doing a TikTok. And legit, my teenage daughter was like, Dad, it will ruin your life.
It will.
I'm like, no, it won't. It'll be fine. So I did a couple of things. I set up a profile for the gun grams, and half of those would get banned. I did a gun gram of Barbie World.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, 1 minute and 46 seconds long. The first minute got banned. The second 46 seconds did not. So I put the first minute up again, and then it got banned twice.
Yeah. So you have to be more careful about what content you're doing. I mean, on every platform. And so it's good to grab like the introductions and the catchphrases and the dialogue where you're like, man, that's really interesting. If you can find those little 1 minute clips, because ultimately you're not trying to use TikTok as a primary. Think of it as using it as a teaser trailer to where your main content is, and you don't have issues. Does that make sense? Same goes for Snapchat. If you have a 1 minute clip that you're like, okay, that shouldn't get banned anywhere, but it's intriguing, it's engaging, grab that, throw it on Snapchat, throw it on Instagram, throw it on TikTok. That'll drive traffic back to your main platform, but you're also speaking to your next generation audience, which, once you get them following you on your platform, it's because they're engaged. It's difficult for them to run away. And you might have people that are grabbing your content and sharing it already on TikTok.
Yeah.
One of the favorite shows I have right now is the Sean Ryan show. And he is killing it because folks, when they're sharing his stuff, he's like, hey, I appreciate it. I love it. Absolutely. We encourage you to do it. Just make sure you tag us so people know where to find us. And so like his own audience is now like he's building an army. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why he's grown so fast is he encourages people to share his content on every platform.
Gotcha. That's that's pretty cool. You gotta come up and share stuff. I ended up starting another TikTok channel, just telling jokes.
Yeah.
And eventually the gun stuff, since everything went from the channel where I was putting up the gun grams, the last video that I put out was me opening up a jar of peanut butter and dipping one of those big foot-long Tootsie Rolls in the peanut butter and playing Marvin Gaye's "Let's Get It On."
Wow.
Yeah, and that was a bridge too far for TikTok. So I told my right.
Jeez.
So I tell everyone that I was too hot for the talk.
Wow.
And and then I went back and I don't know. I have a couple of accounts, but I don't do anything with them. So when I hear you talk about them, I'm like, oh, maybe I need to get back on that. Maybe I need to be doing all that stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of finding a way, finding a niche. I mean, I think, so what you were doing is showing people more of your personal side.
Right.
That's not really what you do. So if you really want people to know what it is you do, you got to, and again, you're creating content for that. That's completely different from what the other content you're creating. Right? You're doubling your job. I mean, what if that had taken off and gone viral and made you popular? Well, now you got to start feeding that animal. You know what I mean? I say stick to what you're already doing, but just find snippets of the thing you're already doing, and then blast that out to the other areas to lead the traffic back to your primary thing. You know, like stick with that same identity.
Gotcha. So, what did you talk about at AMCON this year?
So at AMCON this year, I wanted to show that my predictions came true.
Nice.
Honestly, I wanted to lead with that and the fact that technology is always advancing, and TikTok now has over 1 billion users globally. Wow. Facebook has 3 billion users globally, so they've gained almost 500 million. And a lot of folks see that and they're like, man, Facebook, it's still killing it. Just because they have over 3 billion users doesn't mean it's being used. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are on there to communicate with their older family and social. I mean, that's the number one reason for social media is social networking. So if I want to stay in touch with, you know, my grandparents and my uncles and all that sort of stuff, I'll go there to see their photos or videos and what they had to eat that night. But that doesn't mean that I'm going there as my primary source of to feed this beast, right?
Right.
Snapchat's my jam, TikTok's my jam, Instagram's my jam, depending on my age group. So even though they're up there, as that generation starts kind of peeling off, you're going to start seeing Instagram replacing it. Instagram's still going to grow. You're going to see Snapchat falling in behind Instagram. The one thing that I think is, again, killing the market is you have TikTok, which is just booming over all of them. If you're looking at percentages of growth, TikTok has destroyed everybody else's numbers this past year. And so you can't really look at it alone all by itself, but I mean, at the same time, you can't ignore it.
Right.
You know what I mean? You just have to figure out a strategy, decide how best to use it, and then continue to monitor it year over year. So that was one part of what I was talking about. The other part was, again, we have a new technology this year. We've got artificial intelligence, which is the ChatGPT, and there's a lot of functional ways of using it to your advantage. I'm not very good at writing, and I need autocorrect, I need spell check, I need Grammarly. I have Grammarly downloaded on all my devices because I'm the world's worst. And there's a lot of stuff I want to say and I want to be able to communicate, and I don't necessarily have the large vocabulary of a professional writer.
Right.
So now I can just be me, write whatever content it is that I want, I can throw it in a ChatGPT and command it, hey, listen, you're a professional writer. And I could say that I want you to write it in the style of Jack Carr, or I want you to write it in the style of Steven Spielberg, or whatever it is that I feel like I closely relate to, and I really enjoy that author's books. And then it'll regurgitate what it is I wanted to say in their language, and maybe that'll click with the people I want it to click with. You know, and then I can go through and modify and edit or ask for 10 examples, and you know, and continue to really
sift through and figure out which one's going to work the best.
Yeah, get a more polished piece. But unfortunately, ChatGPT, I also want to treat like an infant. Like, this infant is learning, and it's not good at what it does yet, so I don't want to trust it and just copy paste what it puts out.
Right.
I need to know the subject I'm talking about. I need to verify that it's giving me correct information in the style that I want before I use it. So yeah, that's what this year was about.
Very cool. All right, let's get to Faster Saves Lives, because this is something that's grown from Ohio to Colorado, now to Arizona.
Yep. Yeah, so the whole reason why we went up there to go do the level 1, level 2 is I wanted to go see this materials. You know, for a long time now, I've believed in the idea that we shouldn't restrict self-defense anywhere. But as we know, the 1994 gun bill that President Biden, who was a senator at the time, helped push through legislation to prevent people from being able to carry on school campus, has really thrown a wrench in the monkey works. If we look at violent crime taking place on school campus since the passing of the 1994 bill, we see that with guns being removed from campuses, violence has gone up. All right, so that takes us to where we're at. We have the Sandy Hook, Connecticut school shooting, which is where Faster was like, hey, we're already training School resource officers. We're already training air marshals. This training needs to be in the public, and so they launched faster to start training faculty and staff on tactical emergency response and emergency medicine, etc. And I thought that looked great. Now, there's other companies out there that were doing it. I followed their track record. I've been in contact with them for a long time, and it just took us till 2019 till they were ready for expansion and growth. It was a program that launched, did really well, and they're in, I think it's like 30 different states, and they've got over 3,000 teachers, faculty, and staff that have been trained in this. They've had 0 incidents, and so I wanted to go there and see it firsthand, because before I endorse it, I want to verify the training is legitimate, etc.
Sure.
And so that's what I was doing up there, and I think it is awesome. I think it is great, and I really like the staff, and I want to help them reach more folks here in the West Coast. And so I think it was a matter of us vetting each other. They wanted to see that I was a good firearms instructor, that I wasn't ego-driven like a lot of the industry, that I would be okay doing what they want their way, which I'm totally fine with. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I could easily go out there and draft up the same thing and preach the same thing, but I'd rather work as a community. I like doing things as a community.
Yep.
And cooperating with folks, because then it's a larger organization, not just me by myself trying to accomplish something. And we're really after doing what's best for the specific school, because the program can look very different depending on the school, whether it's rural or in the city, etc. I mean, Arizona is completely different than Ohio when it comes to CCWs and people who carry.
Sure.
Demographics are different, so the program has to be flexible for the individual school districts.
What I think is really cool is that it's and it's hard to tell people, hey, faster saves lives, helps teachers and staff arm themselves. But it's not just arming themselves. It arm themselves with firearm. It's arm themselves with, here's some other situations. Here's how you do some trauma first aid. Here's how you use a tourniquet. Here's how you use a chest seal.
Right.
Here's how you use all this first aid.
Well, and schools themselves are facing a new thing they've never had to face before. And everyone has different ideas about various things that they can do to help better protect themselves, and I believe in having layers. Just like we looked at school fires, right? Since the 1960s, we've looked at constructing our schools so that they're fireproof. We looked at their doors auto locking, etc., to prevent the fires from spreading. We've looked at so many things like the emergency evacuation plans 4 times a year. We've looked at the fire alarms and being more in tune with the fire department, building our fire departments closer to schools for quicker response. Mm-hmm. Our evacuation plans and our accountability of children. I mean, we're talking multiple layers, and I feel like this sort of thing has multiple layers to it too.
Yeah.
And so I'm not interested in saying, hey, here's the one thing that's going to fix everything. I'm more interested in saying, look, here is a layer that you can use, and maybe it's a final layer, but the tactical medicine portion of it is what we've seen used the most. There's accidents on the playground, there's car accidents out front of the school. If anybody's ever had kids and done the whole drop-off pickup thing.
Oh my God, it's a zoo, and kids getting hit by cars, etc. Well, I mean, emergency medicine is important, having a tourniquet there, because a person can bleed out, in 2-3 minutes. So now, just like law enforcement and the military are receiving the same kind of tactical emergency medicine training, why aren't we training schools? And that is something that I think every school can say, you know what, I don't see anything wrong with that. Let's get that in here. Let's do it. But I believe in training being really realistic. Mm-hmm. And so not only do we want to teach you all the basics of it, but we also want you to put you through like sort of a mock event, so that you can we can test those skills under pressure of feeling as though this is actually happening right here, right now, right,
etc. Because that's, your body won't go where the mind hasn't been. So if we don't actually condition the mind under those circumstances, we will see a likelihood of a failure to perform during an actual incident. And so, FASTER is actually looking at incorporating and building out more blowout classes to help address every school's needs when it comes to emergency response. And so that's exciting.
Very cool. Lost my train.
That's okay.
I derailed.
Choo-choo.
Right. Training, something about training. All right, keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep talking.
Okay.
It'll come back.
Sounds good. So, like I said, they've got multiple level classes. Anyone that's interested in the FASTER program can reach out to fastersaveslives.org.
Yep.
And a lot of their training, of course, is going on in Ohio, and I'm at their mercy. I know that they've recently gone out to Idaho, and they put on a big level 1 class out there.
Oh, cool.
20 plus students in the state of Idaho.
Nice.
And I talked to a lot of the legislators and stuff on the back end, and I hear like Idaho has like a great governor, and they've got people writing new legislation. There's a lot of folks who don't realize their state has legislation that already allows them to carry, just like here in Arizona.
Very cool.
And so we are reaching out to school districts. We're reaching out to school resource officers. We're providing this training for our school resource officers. So anybody out there that's in Arizona that has a school resource officer who wants some really diehard free training, we'll jump it. We're more than happy to have you.
Absolutely.
They're able to go back and speak to the schools and say, yes, I absolutely believe that this stuff is awesome and great. I also like getting some of the feedback, like maybe you want to tweak this, maybe you want to tweak that, or whatever. Because I'm not ego driven. So if you tell me that there's something we could be doing better, or a better way of doing something, I'm all about it.
Sure.
So that's always kind of nice. And we partnered up with some local sheriffs, and we're reaching out to more school districts. We just reached out to a recent school district, and because of privacy, I don't ever tell anybody who we work with or who we train. But it sounds like we've got an entire school district that's on board now, and so that's going to be really great.
That is pretty incredible that you can get the whole school board involved and get everyone involved. I know I live in occupied territory in New England, and even though somebody might say they're on board with this, nobody's got the stones that's going to step up and say, you know what, I want to do this. I want to bring this to my school.
Right. Well, in the more rural communities, I think there's a greater need for it, where they've got 1 or 2 sheriff's deputies or whatever. I mean, they're out there, and their response time, instead of being in the city where it might be 2 to 3 minutes, the response time maybe 7 to 14 minutes. And again, we get into, car accidents, and we get into playground injuries, and we get into, any number of things that the emergency medicine is going to be super important.
I think that's what I want to bring up, the emergency medical stuff, because that's, I hear people say all the time that if you're gonna carry a gun, you need to have some first aid training, because if you think that you're going to be in a dangerous situation, you need to have something to be able to take care of people, and it might not be you that gets shot; it could be someone else.
Well, and it goes back to, you can carry it, but how often do you train with it?
Right.
If you carry a tourniquet on you, how often are you practicing putting that tourniquet on solo? And then I just went through a really awesome class by SlyTech Training with Brian Belize. If you haven't seen that, it's injured shooter training. And so he goes through, and we do all the tactical medicine stuff, but then he, will tape up a tennis ball to your right or left hand. So you have to go and do all this tactical stuff with the absence, or partial use of this thing in your hand there.
Yeah.
And that was totally awesome. That was exhausting, dude. So if you want 16 hours of getting burned, that's the one to do.
Cool.
I'm beating my firearm on the car, trying to clear malfunctions. And
oh my gosh.
I tested my optics that day, but let me tell you, I scratched some pain. So another plug for Right On Optics, because I've been testing this thing out. It's really, really awesome. But
nice.
Yeah, we're doing all that. We're putting on chest seals. We're putting on tourniquets. All of that stuff one-handed. And it doesn't have to be in a firearm-related thing. Like, it drives me nuts when they start like, you might get shot in the hand. You might have to do this. Like, right. I've closed my hand in car doors. I've had guys piece of equipment slip and gash my hand. I've had it wrapped up for a week, and I've had to do everything lefty for a while. So there's a million and one ways. And you think about a car accident, right? Where you're in a car accident, and it's you, your wife, and your kids. Well, now you're injured. And each one of your children needs a tourniquet. How good are you at climbing over and getting to each of them and being able to do it in a car where the roof is collapsed? So
right.
You're having to squirm and work with limited space, limited movement in your hand. Are you able to apply tourniquets? Do you carry that many tourniquets in your car? So there's like a million different ways we can use emergency medicine. But and again, if you're not testing it, if you're not applying it, having somebody go back and check to make sure those tourniquets are properly installed, then you're trusting. I don't know. It's like that emergency battery you go to jump your car and it doesn't work. It's not charged because you haven't been using it. It's like the fire extinguisher you had in your kitchen you bought for comfort a long time ago. the first time you get a kitchen fire, you whip that thing out and go,
what do we do here?
You know?
Yeah.
And now you're like, well, great, now how do I put out the fire? Like, you got to use the equipment and train and test yourself with that equipment on a regular basis. Otherwise, it's, what is it John Cree always says? It's like it's a lucky rabbit's foot, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Magic talisman.
Right. That's pretty cool. Speaking of the training, going to the, how many level classes do you guys have for Faster?
Okay.
I went up, I talked to Laura Carno recently.
Yeah.
From Faster, Colorado.
Okay.
And when I was out in Colorado, I was supposed to pop into a level 4 class. And I got to tell you, she said it was mostly, you know, really advanced shooting stuff. I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't make it. Because I don't want to embarrass myself.
Yeah, some of those classes, man, they're so round intensive. Like, my trigger finger starts to go numb. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to start doing some of this two-handed left. Give my trigger finger a break. But, so as far as I know, Faster has 3 different levels. So Colorado, 4th level, that's news to me. I'm excited to hear about it. So we have the foundations, and the foundations classes for folks that want to go from 0 to hero. So I've never touched a gun before in my life. And it's kind of a prerequisite unless you're active duty law enforcement, etc. We want to make sure that you know the laws. So foundation class in Arizona is 2 days long. So it's a total of 16 hours. You're probably going to shoot about 500 rounds. And day one's almost entirely law and legal. And then we teach you a lot of the fundamentals of drawing from the holster, function clearances, you know, the fundamentals.
Right.
Once you made it through that, then we do the level 1 class. And the level 1 class is 2 days. It's approximately 1,000 rounds of ammunition. You have to pass the Arizona Police Officer Standardized Test in order to qualify. At the end of those 2 days, we do the Tactical Combat Casualty Care Medicine, or TECC, which is Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. So it's a lot of the stop the bleed, applying tourniquets, chest seals, and pressure bandages, and plugging the wound. So we're doing that those 2 days, and then the last day is a force-on-force, all-inclusive immersive training. So we get into some room clearing and door breaching probably early on, hallway clearing, stuff like that, just the very basics. And then we put you in the actual scenarios with things that happen on campus, and we try to use the school that we're training. So if there's a school that has multiple numbers of administration and staff that wanted to do this, we generally try to use their school, because then it's even more immersive. It's happening on their school campus.
Right, they know their way around.
They know their way around. Yeah. They know the layout. They know their students and stuff. But now we've got, you know, and we're using all adult actors and stuff, and we're using UTM simunition. But now I've just seen the role players get so immersed as they're going through this with actual incidents that have been recorded before in the past. So it's not like we're just creative and trying to create, what if this happens?
Right. We
try to use evidence-based stuff that we've, you know, actual incidents of things that have occurred on campus, whether it's domestic violence or child custody issues, or a student that has become aggravated and wants to exact revenge on a teacher, or a father that wants to exact revenge on a teacher. We throw them into that thing and see how they react to it. And there's no right or wrong. Just show us what you would do, and then let's give you some tips and pointers on what you might be able to do next time better, etc. And so that sort of weeds out a lot of folks, because now that's very reality based, and then we've had students come through and say, hey, you know what, this is very intense. I thought I was ready for this. I feel like maybe I need to do this again and perform a little better before I trust myself to handle such an immersive thing. And then of course we've got other folks that maybe we weren't expecting a lot from, that really just stepped up and did everything they learned in the class, that have just blown us back. We're like, holy cow, where'd that person come from? So I'm a big believer in the force on force training, because it really, you know, shows where the muscle meets the meat in this program.
Yeah, what I liked, I only did the level 1 class. What I really liked about the last day, which is the force on force, is you would, as one of the other adults in the class, you get to be one of the students.
Yep.
They said this person's the teacher. There's something's going to happen. The teacher needs to respond accordingly. So we would do these after action reports, and then of course you're like, well, when it's my turn, I'm going to do this. Like, this is how I'm going to handle this situation.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, yeah. So then they throw you in a different situation. You're like, oh, wait a second. I wasn't
ready for this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then you go to your scenario, and you're like, okay, this is how I'm going to handle it. And then you do another one. You're like, okay, they've taken it up a notch. It's not just like we're going to shoot at the bad guy and call it. We're like, okay, we're going to shoot at a bad guy. People are going to be there. People are going to have little red handkerchiefs on them, or whatever, bandanas on them to show that they're bleeding. And then they're going to respond to you. And you're like, okay, well, what do you do now? Okay, you shot the bad guy. What's next? You're like, we had this acronym for something. I think I'm supposed to call somebody. I don't know what I'm doing here. And it really gets you on top of things. It makes you think about all of this. And then when you see the video of the shooting in Nashville, you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of what we did. Yeah. Like, we went in and took care of this stuff kind of quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, so we want to follow that through with, all right, now you got to get 911 call. Are you going to do it? You're going to have somebody else do it. We want to make sure we're able to escort police in so they're not just charging in the wrong direction, or if they don't know that you may or may not be armed, etc. And again, this isn't about really arming teachers and staff. This is about giving you options, because obviously if the school successfully locks down, we're not looking for someone to go out and stroll the hallways and look for the bad guy. Like, if you have the ability to get everybody locked down and let law enforcement do their job, awesome. This is more or less a statement of schools that, many of them I've seen already that have a signpost that says, hey, look, we have armed staff somewhere. We are not going to be an easy target. That's one additional layer to let criminals know that we're not going to tolerate mischief on our campus.
Yeah.
Level 2 is more intensive, more immersive. It's 2 days of live fire, and then again, force on force on the third day. The difference is now we start doing more shoot house work. So I remember them doing a lot of circ pistol, room clearing, etc. On day 1 after the live fire stopped. Then you got into actual live fire in the shoot house on day 2, and then it was UTM and force on force all of day 3. And they presented some really big scenarios, like an outside football game in the parking lot. So, oh my gosh! So there's a lot of moving and running involved. There was the school drop off in the parking lot. So now you had kids getting off buses, and there was a mass casualty thing going on. And now you had to assess and treat everybody in accordance to their injuries. And so there's a little mathematical equation where you have 1 or 2 minutes for people bleeding to figure out who needs help now. How do you do that? So that was really neat. And level 3 typically is private training done at the school facility for folks that want to take it even a step further. Because you can only do level 1, 2 so many times before you're like, okay, I feel like I'm rocking at this. Like, you need to be tested and pushed further in order for growth to really happen and occur, in my humble opinion. So, and this is what I do as part of my full-time job for daily life is reaction to violence on campus and teaching folks. So how to respond to that, teaching teens how to respond to that stuff.
That's really cool. I had somebody recently ask me, they emailed me and they said, hey, listen, we want to build a security team in our church. Everybody's armed, everyone's got their licenses, everyone carries. What do we need to do? And I'm like, you need to talk to somebody else.
That's what got me started. I came back from overseas as a civilian contractor, and it was very difficult sitting in even a church setting in a crowd of people. That just was uncomfortable. You go from what's going on overseas in Iraq in 2007, 2008, something I'm home in 2009. My wife wants to sit and enjoy the music, and I was just a ball of tense. Like, I feel better if I'm standing up in the back of the room.
Right.
And this is before we saw a lot of the stuff happen on church campuses. And their security director reached out to me and said, hey, would you be willing to provide us training? And I said, okay, well, here's the deal. Like, when you say training, this is what I picture for training. So if you're interested in that.
What's your idea of having some training here?
Let's set the goals and expectations. Let's bite this off in little bits, because you can't do everything all at once. So that's typically how I handle everybody, regardless of what they're coming to me for. Is I want to know their current experience, knowledge,
and where you can take,
and what their goal is, how they want, where they want to go, and how, contextually, how does this really apply to you? Like, what is your normal full-time job, and what is this thing you're training for? Because I skin every apple different. Is the easiest way to say that.
Very cool. This is really cool. This is a great gig.
It is.
It sounds like I know there's biz involved. I know there's
Well, they're a non-for-profit. Currently here in Arizona, we've already raised $1.2 million, so we can train over 1,000 teachers and staff.
That's amazing.
I think we have 45 that we've already trained and certified. And again, I've seen other schools back east that put even greater restrictions. I mean, the purpose of this is so that you have at least a curriculum you can present to the school system or to your church to say, hey, look, our guys have gone, trained, gotten certified in this. They have to have a CCW even before they go through it.
Right.
But now I have a baseline of showing what my guys have been taught and what they know. And then the school, if they want to do like a psychological evaluation on top of that, or maybe they've got 5 that are trained, but they really only need 2. Maybe they only allow 2, but they got 3 that are in standby. And again, there's a cost issue here where it's not really like, okay, I'm going to pay you to do this service now. It's if you have the certification, we're going to allow you to carry, and we're going to allow you to respond. And but at the same time, nobody's dictating to you that, okay, well, now that you've done this, you have to do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I like that freedom of choice. Again, if the school's able to do their lockdown and everybody's safe, or if it's out in the parking lot and the school's locked down, like, why would I go out there and get involved in it? That's what we have police for.
Right.
You know what I mean? So just it's about making the right decisions and using it only when it's needed, and giving schools more options, especially out there in the rural communities, you know, where they're waiting a whole lot longer.
Oh my gosh, totally. Cool, man. I appreciate this. All right, where can everyone find all of you, all of your stuff, and all the Faster?
All right, so if you're interested in Faster, then go to fastersaveslives.org. If you're interested in donating to help schools get the funding that they need, because we pay for their hotels if it's necessary, we pay for all of the training, we pay for their ammunition. You can also go to fastersaveslives.org. If you're specifically looking for Arizona, then you can go to the Arizona Citizens Defense League Foundation.org, and you can get more information there. My company is dcs.training, and my name is David Laird. You can find me at, you can email me at instructordave240@gmail.com. And feel free to reach out to me with questions or whatever else. Feel free to reach out to Faster and ask them how we can get this thing started. Doesn't matter what state it's in. I know that they'll want to go there and help you with what you're doing.
That's way cool. That is awesome. This is a great gig you got. This sounds like it's a lot of fun too.
You got a great gig. You drive around the car, cameras pointing at people's faces.
It's not so bad. All right, listen, we got to close things out. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me again. We
are going to put some links on there for all of the places that Dave mentioned. If you are not a member of the Second Amendment Foundation, you can join at saf.org. There's going to be a link below for that. You need to go to the Self-Defense Radio Network. That is sdrn.us. Sorry about that. That is where you find all of your favorite pro-freedom podcasts. And if you made it this far, you need to share the show with your friends, because this is how we get the Stagecoach across America. Thanks a lot.
Be sure to like and follow this guy.
I know, right?
You have some interesting people in this seat all the time, man.
I'm just trying to keep up, man. That's all I'm trying to do.